Welcome to today's session. Really glad to have you with us today. My name is Chirag Suri, and I'm the marketing manager at BatchMaster. So today, we're gonna talk about something, that comes up a lot in the conversations, with process manufacturers, and which is the procure-to-pay process. As we all know, the procure-to-pay process, touches almost every part of the manufacturing operation. From the moment you raise a purchase order to the point, you make the final payment to the vendor. And when it's not running smoothly, you can feel its impact in your cost, in your timelines, and in your ability to make some good and informed decisions. So without any further delay, let's get started. Let me pull up the slides on the screen. You can see my screen, right?
Yep, we can see us.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's, here's a quick agenda for today. We're gonna, start with a quick overview of the P2P process, where we're gonna cover, where it actually breaks down, what is typical workflow, and, what an effective P2P process looks like. Then, Dipesh, who is a senior solutions consultant, he's gonna take us through a live demonstration of, how the entire P2P process works inside Batchmaster. We also have a customer perspective segment in between, where we'll get some first-hand, insights how they are executing the P2P process. And lastly, we're gonna wrap it up with a Q&A. So if you have any questions during the session, feel free to drop them in the chat box and we'll address them at the end. Okay, so before we get into the overview, I just want to take a moment just to introduce Amir. So Amir is the CEO of SIPCO Innovations, which is a family-owned Canadian manufacturer. They are known for producing environmentally friendly solutions, and they have been using Batchmaster for quite some time now. So getting insights from him on the procurement process, I think, would be really beneficial for everyone. So Amir, welcome, and really glad to have you here today. It would be great if you can just introduce yourself and tell us a little about, SIPCO Innovations and your story.
Thank you so much, Chirag. Thanks for inviting me to this webinar. I appreciate it. As you have correctly mentioned, I'm Amir. I'm the CEO of SIPCO Innovations. We are a manufacturer of different inputs for agriculture, including biopesticides, nutrients, plant growth enhancers, and the company has been around for quite some time, since 1974. Myself, I spent about 2 decades, working in manufacturing, agriculture, supply chain, renewable energy, you name it. Actually, these experiences have really helped me understand and appreciate how technology can make things easier. Um, and yeah, if you want me to get a little bit more about SIPCO Innovations, I would say that and how we got involved with Batchmaster, actually, I'd say that, for a 51-year-old company, we went through a couple of, I would say, modernization. I would say at least one in every decade. And one of the most recent ones started back in 2017, where we actually wanted to get on the most updated version of ISO 9001, which, by the way, we've been certified since 1998. So combined with that, we just looked at it and realized, okay, so we don't have proper tracking, we don't have a proper recording, we don't have proper planning system. So combined with that, we started implementing Batchmaster. And we have been using it pretty much since the end of 2017, where the implementation process got completed. So yes, I do have a lot of experiences working with the system, and I will be happy to answer any questions that might come today.
Great, Amir. Thanks a lot. It really means a lot that you are a customer. So great. For our attendees, Amir, I just want to ask you one question. What were the key challenges you were facing pretty much around procurement and purchasing before you implemented Batchmaster?
So one of the main issues that we were having before implementing Batchmaster was production planning, as well as raw materials planning. Pretty much were all done in a manual way. I would say, in Excel. Sure, there were some really good formulas implemented in Excel that could really help us. But at the end of the day, small error in writing the formula or let's say like a manual entry error from an operator could essentially give us wrong information. And at the same time, back in the day, we had I would say a platform for manufacturing and a different platform for accounting. They were somehow connected with an adapter system, but they were really not talking to each other. So it was like both sides of the organization, let's say the sales side and the manufacturing side, and followed by that, the supply chain and purchasing were kind of isolated. So it was not easy to navigate those. It was hard to do planning, and planning was a cumbersome process because you didn't have live data. You had to kind of pull from this system and the other system, then combine them into an Excel sheet at best and kind of run it. So yeah, like implementing BatchMaster was really helpful for us to actually navigate that.
Great to know that. And I think, a lot of people would relate to those points as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, was there a specific moment or a gap, that made you start looking for a solution? Unlike Batchmaster, was there a specific, turning point, I would say?
So when we were going through a basically selection process, majority of the ERP systems, especially the manufacturing segments of it, were mainly designed for discrete manufacturing and not batch processing. That was one of the most important criteria for us to be able to select BatchMaster. There were not that many options, at least back in the day. Combined with that, the lot traceability for us was really important because we're in a regulated industry where we actually have to lot track each and every bottle that we sell in case of a recall or in case of any potential issues. These two were super important for us. Obviously, there are other matters that are important, but these two were like really the basics for us. So any vendor, any supplier who were not able to meet these two, obviously we couldn't continue the conversation with them.
Okay. Great to know that. And really appreciate you sharing that, Amir.
You bet.
Probably, I think we can now proceed with the session, but I would definitely come back to you later for your insights throughout the session.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So before we move on, I just want to, throw a quick poll as it will, help us understand your current challenges with the procure-to-pay process. So let me pull up the poll on your screen. So here's the poll question. What is your biggest challenge in managing your procure-to-pay process? You can see different options and you can select multiple options as needed. And I would like to give everyone around 30 seconds to respond. Moving on, let me share my slides. Okay, great. So, let's now, talk about, why the procure-to process breaks down in the first place. So, procure-to-pay usually sounds straightforward on paper, but, in process manufacturing, it's more complex. As you know, that procurement is, tightly tied to the planning, to the quality and compliance. And, when any of those pieces, isn't connected, whole flow, gets impacted. Starting with the disconnected planning and procurement. So, without real-time inventory or demand alignment, the purchasing decisions, end up being more reactive, I would say, rather than optimized, and which, ultimately leads to the limited visibility. And we have often seen manufacturers, complaining about visibility. So once, a PO is raised, the teams, basically struggle to track where materials are at any given point, whether they are in transit, whether they are in the quality control, or whether they are available for production. Then, there are some quality and compliance bottlenecks as well. So QC holds, approvals, they are not part of the process. And when they are not built into the flow, they often, lead to, delay in material availability, and they basically usually impact the production. Next, I think it's basically the manual invoice matching, which is obviously another common pain point, I would say. In this process, reconciling the POs, the receipts, and the invoices across systems manually, that often lead to errors and delays that your finance team often has to face, I would say. And lastly, that there's a lack of traceability. So when the systems, they are disconnected, tracking a material from vendor to the production usually becomes very difficult, especially, during audits or recalls. So in a nutshell, I would say these challenges, just don't, slow the procurement process, but they, ultimately impact the production, compliance, and the overall business performance. Moving on, let's see, what a full procure-to-pay, cycle looks like. And as you can see on the screen, so, it breaks down usually into three main phases. It all, starts with demand and planning, where you're pulling together inputs like forecast, actual sales orders, safety stocks. And, based on that, the system runs MPS and MRP just to determine, what materials are needed, by when they are needed, and in what quantity. So here the procurement is purely driven by actual demand. Then those planning outputs then flow into the procurement and receiving phase, where purchase orders are generated, and they are sent out to vendors. Once the material comes from the vendor, they don't go straight into the inventory. They basically have to go through the quality control first. And this is especially important in process manufacturing, where raw materials quality directly impacts your finished goods. And if your materials pass the QC, they can move on to the inventory, and they can become available for production. But if it fails, then they are either returned to the vendor or they are being scrapped. And the last phase is, it's the invoice to payment. So here, the vendor sends an invoice, and system, basically performs a three-way match. It compares the purchase order, the goods receipt, and the invoice. This is also, I would say, a critical step because it ensures that you are only paying for what was actually ordered and received. And once it gets validated, it moves on to the accounts payable, and the payment is processed, which which ultimately completes the full cycle. Now, what I have seen, like a lot of in many organizations, these three phases, they are happening, but they're happening across disconnected systems. And when they are unified into one single system, the entire process becomes more faster, accurate, and basically more traceable. Moving on, so let's now talk about what a compliant P2P process looks like. So a well controlled P2P process usually comes down to five main things. First, it's the demand-driven procurement, where purchasing should be driven by real-time planning. The right materials, are ordered at the right time, and those should be based on actual demand and not any guesswork. Second is having that built-in quality control. So I strongly feel that quality should not be a separate step that happens on the side. It should be completely embedded into the process itself. So only approved materials can go forward into the production. Then we have, a controlled vendor management. This, you should ensure that you're working with only qualified and approved vendors. That consistency, matters for compliance, reliability, and, ultimately the quality of your end product. Fourth is, the system-driven validation. This step should ensure some kind of a financial accuracy. That should be enforced through automated checks like three-way matching, rather than, you're just relying on someone, to manually reconcile across spreadsheets or systems. And fifth is, complete visibility and traceability, where every step, is connected in one system. And that gives you a full picture from PO to payment and an audit trail that's always ready. So, this is like a standard milestone, I would say we should all aim for to have a compliant P2P process. Okay, so I think at this point, I would like to hand it over to Dipesh, who will gonna give us a walkthrough of the first half of the P2P process inside BatchMaster. To be very specific, I think he's gonna show you the flow from forecasting through the MRP into the purchase orders and all the way through to the goods receipt. So Dipesh, over to you.
Great. So before we get into any of the planning aspect of what our system is capable to address, just some nuances on how an end user could navigate within the system. Like you can see on my desktop is the purchasing process. So depending on different users logging into the system may have access to these. And then there are ways to navigate within the system. If someone wants to get into a purchase order, you can tap on purchase order and the system will launch the purchase order entry screen basically. And then all the inputs that are needed to create a purchase order. But in this case, what I'm going to do here is show you that when we complete that entire purchase to procurement and the payable process, that entire process looks like, and this is one of an existing purchase order that has gone through several different processes. What I'm going to try and show you here is just an end-to-end procure-to-pay process. And that entire process could have initiated from planning, like forecasting, or it could have been based off of a quote, like a requisition. And those requisitions could have been turned into a purchase order. And maybe against that purchase order, you may have made any down payments to your vendors. And then against those down payments, outgoing payments were made. Multiple shipments could have been done to against that purchase order, then receiving the supplier invoices, and then making those payments across, or any good returns that you may have done. So anything that have touched through that entire procure-to-pay process, our system can account and capture that in a graphical manner that you can see here. And with these widgets that you see here, the beauty is one can navigate into these by just tapping on, or you can double click on these different widgets to actual transactional screens to drill down into further details. Now, to get to this milestone, let's have a look on, let's initiate a purchase order and see. So I have a pre-stage purchase order in the system here. And some of the details that customers need, like having line level comments on the purchase order, or it could be an order level comments. So all those placeholders do exist within the system. So for each and every line item, you could have industry specific, any line level comments, or it could be order level comments, taxes if applicable, pricing. So system, you can configure multiple layers of price list that system can call out. Now, when you have these purchase orders for your qualified suppliers that you see here, just I'm trying to set the stage that this is the screen where the purchase orders are reflected basically. Now, I'd like to step back and talk through what initiates or what are different sources that one can go ahead and create a purchase order. One can create ad hoc purchase orders, but there are stages like planning tools. These are like advanced planning options that our system has ability to look into a variety of different sources. One of the source of demand or is projection, like forecasting. You could forecast for your raw materials based on the usage. So you can add multiple lines of forecasting lines, and you can have our system help you fill the forecast based off of usage of that ingredient. So based off of production history. Or if marketing team or production team is able to provide you their forecast, then you can have them provided in an Excel template that can be also imported into our system. And there is an option on the bottom right corner to import the forecast. The calendar view that you see here is user defined. It could be, and there are 3 different demand ranges that you can break down your planning horizon. Could be short-term plan, mid-term plan, and long-term plan. That system translates into days, weeks, months, or quarters as well. However, you may want to set up those planning calendars and then have system populate these numbers that one can go ahead and override. So this forms one of the source of demand. There are other sources of demand for raw materials, like it could be production batches, it could be like an MPS, like a production plan. I may have a rough cut plan, and system may want to project based off of those that what raw materials and packaging components I may be needing, accounting for lead times, your preferred vendors, and everything. So assume a buyer every morning or throughout the day, if he wants to review the plan, what system has provided in terms of recommending what to buy and when to buy. So this is the planning dashboard for buyers where they can review the entire plan, recommending these are the preferred vendors, what raw materials and packaging components to buy, when to buy in terms of timeline, dates, and in terms of quantities. Like you can see here, quantities as well. And you'll also note that some of the lines here are in multiples of 500. It's just because from this vendor, anytime I'm buying these raw materials, system is recommending to buy based off of minimum order quantities, MOQs that you establish at the item level and the vendor level as well. A point to note is also that if you were to have some more inquiries, questions, that why system is recommending to order these different quantities, different dates, in order to inquire that, you can tap on these hot links and then navigate into the worksheet, like the actual details of its demand planning, and you'll be able to see that system starts to summarize and starts to answer why did it recommend to order me these amount of quantities on certain dates or certain weeks. As you navigate through, you'll be able to see system summarizing those details as demand, dependent demands, or gross demand. As you tap on these, you'll start to see that in this week, I may have just one order, or in certain weeks, I may have multiple orders calling for the same raw material, and these are different products that I may be making. So you start to get these answers, and then also system looks into what is available quantity, and or what are the economic order quantities, inventory levels that you may want to maintain. And then as you tap on these stock details, these are more ad hoc details around that inventory item. Maybe you have different warehouse locations that you store these raw materials. What are the on-hand stock in those respective locations, safety stock, as well as any expired lots that you may have. All these numbers are very well accounted into the plan, and then system starts to recommend you what you should be purchasing on what specific week or what specific day based on your planning horizon. And then with these answers, when you're satisfied, you can start to confirm these orders. And one of the reasons why you see these color-coded information is to make a visual impact. The ones that appear in yellow are my forecasted orders. I have some time to buy them and make decisions on those. The ones that appear in purple, these are the highlights. These are the ones that the buyer needs to pay urgent attention on. These are past due orders. So having these to turn into a purchase order or into a draft that goes through an approval process, you happen to select these lines. And at this moment, let's say if I were to combine these lines, group them into a bulk purchase order, I can combine them. I can have them ordered into multiple economic order quantities if I want to, and then turn them into a purchase order. So this brings in automation as well. Now, these are more sophisticated time fence planning options that our system has, and one can utilize them to turn them into purchase orders, basically. There are other essential options. Let's say when you initiate the implementation and you may want to go off of crawl, walk, run approach, then the demand supply approach is one of the tool where you can have. So this essential inquiry allows you to look into a certain end date. That end date could be just in time, or it could be a future date, and you want system to help you understand to that through, let's say, 31st of August or 28th of August. Help me understand what I should be buying or what I should be making, and looking into the QC lead times, inventory levels, and show me only the ones that I'm falling short of, which are like that I need to pay urgent attention on, that I cannot meet the demand coming my way through August 28th. If I want to inquire just for a specific raw ingredient, a chemical, or any ingredient that it might be, depending on the industry, you start to provide these criteria. If you leave them open, you're essentially telling system in a logical way that show me everything that I'm falling short of. Either I have to make it or I have to buy it. When you tap on it, system starts to accumulate the data, do its math, and then in the background, it starts to do those calculations and give an output. Now, and you'll be able to see that it starts off with what you have in stock, like as an available quantity, as well as accounting any inventory levels. And then accounting whether the demands are coming from a customer order or a purchase order or a production order, let's say, or a forecasted order. System accounts these numbers and then does a running math and then tells me that through 28th of August, the date is on the top right corner, that I'm going to fall short by 2000 plus quantity. That gives a visual clue to your planners, to your buyers, to be able to turn these information into purchase orders or purchase requisition. If purchase requisition, then this goes through approval process, and then one can turn them into a purchase order. Now, anything that turns into a purchase order, or let's say any avenue that you opt to create purchase orders, this is the screen where all that information gets reflected. One can create ad hoc purchase orders as well. Now, when you have these purchase orders, let's say you may want to do any down payments so if you were to do any down payments, you can navigate into down payments and then make those advance payments as well. But just trying to keep the flow simple, what I'm going to do here is, let's get into the receiving side, like a goods receiving. Let's say the deliveries arrive from these suppliers, and at this time, the receiving users navigating or having access to goods receipt PO screen starts to acknowledge what is being received, what they are receiving. They can override, they can receive more than what was ordered, less than what was ordered into this line. And then as they tap on add and view, system is going to basically open a screen where it wants you to record supplier lot numbers. So having two different line items on my PO, as you tab out, you'll be able to see that our system can pre-generate a lot number. It can pre-generate an expiration date as well. But let's say if you're relying on vendor certificate of analysis, you can go ahead and have those, you can call out those dates into these fields right here. Country of origin, maybe you may want to account for any of the classifications that you may want to. So these are those attributes around these lot numbers. Maybe you're receiving multiple lot numbers, you can go ahead and do that. Maybe I am receiving these. Along with that, you can also predefine rules that anything that I receive in terms of these raw materials, all that needs to be in QC hold. Until QA/QC is going to review that, it cannot be utilized into any production processes or any other processes throughout the system. So these are those checks and balances that one can go ahead and configure. And as you start to receive these line items, you may repeat that for other line items as well, and fill out the details that you may want. And as you tap on it, you can go ahead and receive. You can just complete that goods receiving transaction. As a result, what system does, it notifies quality control users that the quality control records have been created so that they can navigate into those. And we'll look into that in the second half of this presentation. And also, one of the validation that Chirag did mention about supplier qualification. So as you add these purchase orders, one can only add these purchase orders to your qualified suppliers. So basic supplier management and verification features in accordance to regulatory requirements do exist within our system. So say, for example, if I were to make any changes, let's say here, I'm trying to apply a discount of 10% when I'm trying to add it or update this record, it's going to validate that some of these items and vendors are not qualified. Do I still want to go ahead and continue? Let's say in this case, I'm just going to say yes to it. But you did see that it has those validations as well in place. That was all from my side. Over to you, Chirag.
Thank you, Dipesh, for showing that flow. Amir, I would just like to bring you back in here, as we have just seen the flow that Dipesh, walked us through. And I know, SIPCO has been through a similar journey as well. So can you share like how you were managing demand forecasting and generating purchase orders before Batchmaster? Was it something, you guys were doing manually, you were using spreadsheets or a different system altogether?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, before essentially having an ERP system, we had two different modules per se. One was for accounting and one was for manufacturing. So on the manufacturing side, we were able to put some order point for each raw material item. But the way that it was working was essentially it was based on the historical data. Um, yes, we could implement some of the forecast from the cells as well and kind of set that order point, but it was very static. It was not dynamic. So I guess shifting from that mentality to more of MRP, well, I would say MPS and including MRP, um, was really helping us to be a little bit more forward-looking versus only looking at the historical data. That was important for us. Couple of things that I could just add to what you and Dipesh have mentioned is that screen that you have shared, Deepesh, at the beginning, where you had all of these documents connected to a PO. That is huge. Just imagine you're a purchasing manager. You sit in your office, a vendor calls you and says, "Hey, um, when are you going to pay us?" The easiest way for you is to just open the purchase order and then right click on it and look at the relationship map. And then you can see the entire journey of that purchase order all the way. And not only you can see it, but also you can open each and every document. You can go all the way to the payment and open the document and say, well, this actually was paid on this or that date. So I think from the actual user perspective, some of these things might look really minor, but a lot of times are actually really, really important to save time. One of the other things I'd like to add is not only we were able to utilize MRP and MPS systems for our production and raw materials planning, but also utilizing some of those custom queries via SQL that you guys were able to build for us helped us really um, double check things. For example, let's say we were using your MRP and MPS systems, but at the same time, we had our order point system set up as a query. So we could actually double check to see from different planning perspective, how do they look like? And that flexibility to be able to mine data and run reports with the queries that could be easily built in the system is also huge. Um, and one other thing that I would say that it's a little bit maybe a little bit too detailed from a user perspective is the fact that you're actually able to assign a single MRP item to multiple qualified vendors while maintaining supplier-specific item codes within the system. That is huge. That functionality really helped us avoid creating unnecessary duplicate items, which not only simplify purchasing and improve record management, but also eliminated the need to constantly revise formulas or bill of lading whenever we change suppliers for the same raw material item. So that's another thing that I really appreciate from the system, that you could have one item code added, let's say a raw material item, um, but you could buy the same item from different manufacturers if the specs are the same. Without this ability, you had to create a separate item for each raw material item, even though it's the same generic raw material item. And then it would create issues for your formula. You continuously have to change your formula revision. And with this, it's very easy to toggle between the suppliers for the same raw material. As I know, all the supply chain guys like to have more than one supplier for each and every buy item. And this is essentially really huge to avoid extra work.
And great to know all the, cool functionalities that you guys are using. Just one more thing connected to that only, Amir. Like, was there any specific example, maybe like a stock out or an overstock situation, where having that integrated planning flow actually helped you guys?
Yes, as a made-to-stock company, we never really ran into shortages. But on the other hand, we were holding on to too much stock of raw materials. One instance was labels. Um, you know, in a regulated environment, you need to have labels that are in compliance with the regulations. And, a typical, purchasing pitfall, you look at the unit price per item. Let's say if you're buying a roll of 2,000 labels, of course, the price per label will be much lower compared to, let's say, a roll of a 500. But what you may not look at is that how long will it take to utilize the 500 versus 2,000? So having that planning ability to be able to look at it and say, oh, if I'm ordering labels, I'm looking at it and see during the whole, let's say, 2 years, we have only utilized, let's say, 300. Um, so I definitely wouldn't go and buy 2,000 because the deficit between the total amount paid for the 2,000 labels versus 500, where only 300 of it is going to be used, is huge. So to answer to your question more specifically, we had too much money tied into inventory before implementing this proper planning module.
Okay, great. And just in terms of time, like if I have to ask, how much, has the procurement planning cycle actually, saved time for your team since you have, gone live with Batchmaster?
I would say that the overall, I would say at least 50% because, and I can be a little bit more specific about it. One, the manual planning involved a lot of data entry and copy and paste from different platforms into Excel, then from the Excel into different platforms. And also the process of creating purchase orders were very manual. While, in the planning module, you can just, go to your MRP dashboard and you can essentially very easily create your purchase order in an automized manner from there instead of opening a purchase order screen and, one by one adding line to each field, like let's say pick the cost, pick the supplier, then pick the item. So it's been significant change, I would say.
Yeah, I think 50% coming from you, I think it's a big impact for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And a lot of times, I'm a supply chain guy more than anything else. Um, Us in supply chain, we really like our processes, and we're having a hard time to let go. A lot of times we're thinking, well, what I do in Excel is actually very efficient because we were used to it. So that's another part of it. You wouldn't realize how much time you will save unless you actually let go and start being open to other ways of doing things. And we're not an exception. I personally was very I would say defensive about it and didn't want to let go of my Excel sheets. I loved them, but over time, I realized it's actually making my life much easier. So I would say you wouldn't know until you actually try it, and then you'll see that the time saving could be really up to 50%, if not more.
Mhm.
Wow, that's great. Great to hear that. And thank you, Amir. Really valuable to hear that firsthand.
Of course.
Okay, so we're gonna come back to you later after the demo part two. Amir, thanks for staying. Moving on. So all right, I think now it's the time for the second half of the demo. So I would like to request Dipesh again to walk us through the back end of the P2P cycle. And that will, I think, gonna cover quality while receiving, the invoicing and the payments. So Dipesh, back to you.
Great, thanks. So we did start off with the purchase order, and then we also looked into receiving, let's say, down payments that you can, let's say in this case, we we did a down payment of 40%. And then against that down payments, outgoing payments were made as well. And then when the deliveries were arrived, we did receive these deliveries from our suppliers. And with what you received, when you look into again onto your relationship map, it's going to tell you so far what have been done in terms of the process. So with the purchase order, down payments were made, and outgoing payments were gone against those down payments, and the receiving was done. Now, with this, as I was describing earlier, that a notification goes to quality control, triggering a record. Those quality control records do get triggered automatically against the PO that was received, the lot number that you received, and system can pre-insert automatically all the specifications that you may have defined at the item level. These are the specifications that you want your quality control users to record and perform. Grab the sample, take that sample to the lab, and this is the first sample that we're working off. And let's say as you input the results, one of these specifications didn't go through. That calls in to grab another sample. So you may reinitiate the test by duplicating the sample. You can draw samples, you can retain samples, and then as you initiate second sample set, I'm working off of my second sample now. And then let's say as you do your checks and balances, all these information are in place for your quality control users. Basically, quality control managers can review, evaluate the results, everything done by the technician or the certified users, and then QA managers can review everything done by quality control users, the managers, and then any inventory that is on hold can then be eventually, you can then go ahead and release those lot numbers so that they can be utilized into further processes. Now, these processes can go in parallel. Meanwhile, let's say you receive supplier invoices, accounts payable can navigate into AP invoice to record the invoice reference number as a data touch point. Let's say this is the vendor supplier invoice, and then you'll be able to see that discounts and down payments that were made. And against those down payments, you'll be able to see whether you made one payment or multiple payments, all those information, and these hotlink will help you navigate to those transactional data. Just by adding this information, recording that invoice into the system, and then the balance that you owe is what you may have to go and pay. So this is where you can tap on to get into outgoing payments. And maybe these are different ways where you can make these are different payment means. Could be a check method that you may want to pay, or bank transfers, or credit card, or cash. So let's say I'm making this bank transfer, and today is when I'm going to make, and the balance amount that I have to make the payment of it. And as you do that, you'll be able to add that outgoing payment, and this is something that goes to your as an outgoing payment. And with everything that we did so far, I'm just going to refresh, and you'll be able to see all the journal entries against these invoices, down payments. So tap on journal entry to see all the debits and credits across different accounts that system may have rolled, referencing your supplier invoice number as well. So everything that you'll be able to see, what was debited, what was credited, you have all these granular details available. And with everything that was done so far, again, in terms of just looking at the entire workflow or entire data touch points, you'll be able to see system starts to build these relationship map automatically. Now, one of the things that we talked about was quality control. That is something touches inventory and then eventually goes into production process. So as Amir described, that one of the critical decision-making point for them was about traceability. So this is our bi-directional traceability, where you can audit a supplier lot number and then you can look into where all that raw number was utilized. In this example, I may have used in making this chemical, an all-purpose cleaner in this case, and then eventually being packed into what different packaging containers. This entire flow can go the other side as well, like the reverse flow. Maybe a customer complaining for a product that you made, and then you may want to drill down into details of what. Uh, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see the relationship map on the page.
Oh, okay. No, I'm showing. I'm sorry. Let me. This is what I was trying to show. This is more from, let's say, uh, starting off with the chemical that you received, and this is where the inventory did touch from quality control to getting into production and making your final products. So it has all that traceability. So vendor calling me for a chemical, complaining about a lot number, and I'm curious to know where all I may have ended up using that. So it tells me I ended up using in this production batch and then into this final product. Maybe I may have used in different products to different finished good that I may have made. With each and every box that you see here has some more additional information to share with us. When you tap here, it tells me that I did receive this chemical on this receiving transaction, this purchase order from this vendor, this quantity. We ended up using them in these two different production batches. When we received, these are all quality control tests that we may have performed. In order to export all these information into more uh, uh, like into an Excel, and then that gets into your distribution list, you can export that details into your Excel into Excel formats as well. Uh, Not only that, but if you were to drill down into the product and get into details of what production batch you ended up making that final product, what all customers did you fulfill these orders. So they have different customers, different quantities that we fulfill. Any external transfers to 3PL or maybe quality control, exporting this information to Excel is very, very helpful. Uh, or the entire flow might be, or a complaint might be coming from a customer, and he may want to go look into what all did we consume in making my final product. So the customer complaining about your final product, and these are all the steps that it may have gone through. You did make the blend going into your final product. These are my empty packaging components along with these raw materials. So just wanted to set the stage and talk through what bi-directional traceability and the level of complexity that our system can address and support. Over to you, Chirag.
Thank you, Dipesh, for showing us, how the back end of the P2P process, ties everything together. At this point, Amir, I would love to bring you back in one more time,
Sure.
just to get your insights on this workflow.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, probably I can start like if you can throw some light on, how for you guys, handling quality control during goods receipt before BatchMaster, and how has that changed for you now?
Yeah, absolutely. So as an ISO 9001 certified company, we already had a robust QC process, but everything was manual. It means that the system was not really foolproof. If somebody just received it into the inventory without proper, would have received it in the inventory without proper quality control approval, it would have been hard to find out. Now, what I really like about this is that obviously when you receive it, you process your GRPO, the automation in the sense that the quality control person will receive a notification in their dashboard. They can open it up, take a look at it, make sure all of the quality control criteria or the processes are done and completed. Then they can just both now physically and digitally release it from the quality control area. Also, the lot status of being able to utilize lot status of QC hold was really, really important and being able to actually enforce it. So I would say the most important part after utilizing BatchMaster for us was to be able to actually enforce the QC from the software perspective. So, after implementing that, let's say a production personnel or let's say the production supervisor could not really pick or do goods issue or even close a batch ticket using raw or packaging material item that has not been QC passed. So it is technically impossible, really. So that was making it more foolproof. And before a product gets out of the door, throughout the process, it would have been visible that, hey, we're trying to use some item that or some raw material item that has not been QC passed. So I would say it made it entirely enforceable for us, and that's been really huge. Um, the other thing that I really like about this, it's not directly related to QC, but it to a degree is related, is the ability of the system to actually assign different access levels and different authorizations. I would say that, having, let's say you have the QC module, but that QC module is the authorization has been given to the right person only. It's not like anybody else, let's say somebody who works in the warehouse or somebody who works in the office can actually get into that and approve or QC release any item either in error or we've all been there. Production is behind. We just need to get it done. Let me go and QC release it in the system. I know it's good. So, having that authorization implemented with having these modules actually make it really foolproof and you can genuinely enforce the quality control in your manufacturing.
Yeah. And I think I just want to add, like, I've seen like a lot of vendors in the market, like they tend to, project that they have the quality control, but
Yeah.
that quality is not completely embedded into entire flow. So
Mm.
they
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
there in some of the touch points, but not throughout the flow.
Correct. So, yeah, I would say that we have utilized your quality control dashboard and the whole QC related, I would say, processes, and are very, very happy with it. It's working really, really well without any hiccups or any issues, and it's very user friendly.
Okay. Good to know that, Amir. And on the financial side, like especially the accounts payable, do you
Yes, yes,
like, yeah.
for sure on the financial side as well. The visibility, I would say, is huge for me to be able to see. Um, I guess, I guess when it comes to the AP and the purchasing side, obviously being able to run the Dunning report or better say um, the report that shows um, how much you owe to each and every vendor and how many days has it been, and your terms with those vendors are also applied. If you have a net 30 terms,
Yeah.
you know, the aging report, sorry, I was just looking for a right term. The vendor aging report is extremely helpful for the accounting side to be able to see, okay, this one I'm going to run it, add it to this pay run. Maybe the other one we still have 2 weeks. So I would say that it really helps with the cash management on the side as well and avoids getting calls from the vendors. Hey, you guys haven't paid us for 3 months. And then, we've all been there. Now everybody's trying to figure out which payment, what payment. I think the visibility combined with the aging really impact the financials. One other thing that might not be part of the scope of this conversation also is the proper GL posting for each and every transaction is very important for me, especially when you set it up at the item group level. Um, you spend time, set it up correctly one time for that item group, and you can rest assured that every time you process a GRPO, it hits the correct general ledger account. And that also is huge. So at the end of the day, when you do your month end process, really once that's completed, for me as let's say as CEO, I can actually run a profit and loss analysis and really take a look at it and see how we have done in that month. And really, it's really online, and you could do it in a present time. And I would say that that's really huge for managers to be able to run their businesses.
Great to know that, Amir. And I guess, now the big picture question I want to ask you, like since you guys are using the full P2P cycle,
Mhm.
from PO all the way to the payment running in one system, how has that changed the visibility for you and your team? I know you already have answered, but just if you want to add something else, probably you can add.
Yeah, I would say that there are many visibilities into the system. Obviously, I'll go back and say that we're in a regulated environment and having that traceability dashboard and the ability to trace each and every order that ships from our factory all the way from the finished good to each and every bottle and cap and raw material item is very, very important for us. And we're actually using it quite often. Um, so the other factor for me, like the whole purchasing process, all the way from entering the demand to running your MRP and be able to have a dashboard that includes everything in one spot is huge. Again, not only it adds visibility, but also it's very user friendly. It's easy to use. You can just right click on it or click on it and then just issue a purchase order right there. And again, for me, the area where you can actually have multiple vendors for the same raw material item without the need to create duplicate items is huge. In our previous manufacturing system, we actually had to do that. Let's say I'll just throw out there, let's say for one item, citric acid, which is really a generic item
Mm.
at a specific percentage. Sometimes we had three, four different items entered to the system, and it's really not ideal. So, and all the way to be able to really quickly answer to the vendors what's the status of their payment, um, and um, and provide that visibility. So,
Yeah.
and lastly, I would say that being able to see your profit and loss analysis right after your month-end process is done is really huge.
That's the bottom line, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the planning module really helps. I would just let me just add it from a business perspective that um, being able to plan properly will release a lot of cash that is tied into inventory otherwise. And just imagine how much you could do with maybe 20% more cash released from your inventory. You could put it into your marketing, you could put it into your sales, you could put it into new manufacturing equipment because raw and packaging materials or in general inputs are costly these days. And having them sitting in the warehouse for years and years, which we have all been there, is very costly too.
Yeah,
It is.
totally
It
agree.
is.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Amir. Great to hear those insights from you. I really appreciate, you sharing your experience with everyone today. So
Happy to.
thanks a lot.
You bet.
Okay, so now I think in the interest of time, we can now open the floor for any questions you may have. You can, feel free to ask anything in the chat box and we can address them one by one. I already saw some questions coming in. I tried to answer most of them, but probably we can take few more. Let me pull them up. So here's the one for you, Amir. It says, does the flow you showed on the slides and the page is showing match zip codes? How, the SIPCO flow look like? And do you want to add anything in terms of being compliant and how you guys operate and using BatchMaster system?
Yeah, to a good degree, obviously, each and every company has a slight, like even though we're all following the similar process, let's say MRP and MPS, which are all supply chain terminology,
Yeah.
but there's always going to be a slight difference between each and every company. For example, let's say if you're in one company, calculation of safety stock could be done in a specific way, and another company could be done in a different manner. But for the most part, we try to avoid too many customizations to be able to use the system or use outside the box possibilities of the system. But yeah, for the most part, that's what we're using.
Okay.
Thanks.
There's one more for you, Amir. Says, how long did it take for your team to get comfortable using BatchMaster on a day-to-day basis?
I would say that let's not kid ourselves. People hate change, okay?
Yeah.
And I would say no, once you get comfortable with a specific process or with a way of doing it, it's not easy to let go. So I guess accepting that reality will really help. So changing an ERP system is not just changing a tool, it's changing how you do business. So it requires proper change management and planning, which involves not only showing the staff what is the plan because they need clarity. They need to know the team who's implementing it have a clear plan to having proper training, which actually during the implementation, we were recording a lot of the training sessions provided by BatchMaster techs, and then we utilized quite a lot of those trainings for training other staff. Third, once we learned quite a lot about it, we started writing work instructions, in-house work instructions that, more match with our specific needs. Um, and and at the end of the day, if you plan it well, it can be done. Um, I wouldn't call it easily, but it will be totally doable. Um, we didn't have, if I'm being honest, we didn't have anybody in our company that at the end of the day didn't want to switch to the new system. Um, I guess one other important factor is to show the users how much time it will save them,
Yeah, the benefit.
how easier it makes it for them. And at the end of the day, we need to show what's in it for each and every individual. And then we'll have everybody's buy-in eventually.
Okay.
But it's,
I
but
could,
it's never easy. It's never easy.
yeah.
That's true.
Okay, I could see a few more questions coming in. Probably we can take a couple of more. It says, can Batchmaster handle both long-term forecast and short-term demand spikes in the same plan? Dipesh, you
Yeah,
want to
it
answer
can. Yeah, sure, it can. And you can break down those into three different demand ranges as I described earlier: short-term plan, mid-term plan, and long-term plan. And then system can translate that into weeks, days, or months, depending on the planning calendar that you have. So you can have different buckets, different planning horizon: short-term, mid-term, long-term plans.
that? Okay, great. Uh, I could see a few more, but I think I like this one. And it's for Amir, for you. It says, what would you like to suggest a manufacturer, who is little hesitant about switching from their current system to an ERP like Batchmaster?
I would say first I would suggest for them to look at their objectives. What are you trying to achieve? Um, if the objectives are matching with what Batchmaster is providing, that would be a no-brainer. If the objectives are different, then that would require a conversation. I would say that for any company who's looking for batch processing with the requirement of traceability, there are not that many options out there. Majority of the manufacturing modules are designed for discrete manufacturing, and there is a significant difference there. It's very hard to give a definite answer because each company is different and their objectives are entirely different. But I would say that a great part of for us, I can only share my own experience. Um, there's always going to be challenges when implementing, but we have been supported really well with the team. So I guess the people work for BatchMaster, and most of you guys are long timers. I mean, I've heard your names for quite some time. I think that the team at BatchMaster could make a difference. They genuinely care about customers, and will be a huge support.
Thanks for the kind words and being honest.
Thank
I mean,
I would say that the technicians managing the implementation could make a huge difference, and BatchMaster has really good techs.
thank you.
great. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, I think you already have consumed the entire session scheduled time. So probably if you have any further questions, you can email us at sales@batchmaster.com. If you want to learn more about BatchMaster, how we can optimize your procure-to-pay process and can help, improve your bottom line, probably you can go to our website for a deeper dive demo. You can log into batchmaster.com/request-a-demo, or you can just simply reach out to us at sales@batchmaster.com. Don't forget to connect with us, on LinkedIn and Facebook, just to stay updated on industry insights, upcoming events, and customer success stories. Before we wrap up, just a quick note. So you're going to receive a short survey within the next 24 hours. You will also see the same survey once this session ends on your screen. Your input is really valuable. It helps us improve our future sessions just to better serve your needs. We'll also be, continuing conducting sessions to showcase our other capabilities and workflows. So I would say look out for the registration emails in your inbox. All right, so I think on behalf of the entire, BatchMaster team, I would like to thank you, Amir, to you for your time and engagement, and to all the other attendees who took out time for this session. We hope to speak with you soon. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Amir. Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.